I invite Professor Gaurav Kapoor. Gaurav, please.
Thank you, sir. I'll be speaking about lasers, iatrogenic injuries, and their prevention. There will be a broad overview because actually the outcome and the sequelae of lasers can be massive, and it is actually impossible to cover this in a single session. So I'll be sticking to the ocular part, the iatrogenic injuries, and majorly the prevention and what measures have been taken worldwide for the prevention of such injuries. So basically we all know this, what the word laser stands for, and basically it means you are emitting a coherent light. Ophthalmology, we all know lasers are now taken over most of the treatments because of the uniqueness of the tissue of the eye, that it is a transparent tissue. So lasers have a big role to play in most of the treatments that we have. I'll not cover the physics part of it. The basic problem that we need to understand is the iatrogenic injuries and the treatment, both are related to the property of absorption of the photon. So basically when you are emitting a light, it is the photon which gives you the treatment part of it, and it is the same photon when absorbed in excess or misdirected which causes the injury. So the basic mechanism remains the same. And similar is the emission. So laser depends on spontaneous absorption and emission of the light. So both these mechanisms release energy. So that is where the treatment also occurs, and that is where the injuries also occur. Now the laser construction, we all know it basically has a pump source, a gain medium, and an optical resonator to magnify or target the laser. Now, laser properties, why we are worried about the iatrogenic injuries is because they have certain properties. One, they are monochromatic, they have coherent, they are collimated, that means all the rays are parallel, and they are polarized in one plane, and the most important part is they are high energy. So as compared to normal light, the intensity is measured in joules per second, and they're very high energy. So types of lasers I'll not go through. We are all aware what are the basic lasers used in the eye. This is a list of the lasers that we commonly use in ophthalmology, and these are the ones which actually cause the iatrogenic injuries also. So starting from Nd:YAG, which is 1064, frequency doubled, argon green, diode laser, eximers, femtosecond. These are all used in various parts of or various domains of ophthalmology. Now before we go into the iatrogenic injuries, if you see, the usage is extensive. You start from the anterior segment right up to the posterior. There's a huge list of treatments that are now done using lasers. So actually classifying iatrogenic injuries depends on which organ you are targeting, which part of the eye you are targeting, and what treatment outcome you are achieving out of that laser. So the hazard list of the FDA has categorized all manufactured laser products into 4 major classes. So class 1 lasers are the non-hazardous. Example, we have the laser printers and the DVD players. They also use lasers, but these are non-hazardous. Class 2 lasers are low hazard, but only when viewed directly for long periods. The common example is the barcode scanners that are used in all shops and our CSDs. These are also lasers, but prolonged exposure causes damage. Class 3 lasers are the potentially significantly hazardous to the eyes with direct viewing, that is the laser pointers, which has been covered in the domestic part. And class 4 lasers are the one which we commonly use, significantly hazardous to eyes and skin, commonly used in opthal and dermat. These are the research and medical lasers, and these are the ones we are worried about because these are the ones which can cause the maximum injuries. So this is the classification that we also use for risk classification of the lasers. Now the laser injuries, ophthalmic lasers have different tissue parameters. They have the same beneficial effect of laser therapy, but they can also cause ocular damage. Basic mechanism of injury is because of the focal magnification or optical gain of the eye, which is approximately 1 lakh times as equivalent to the laser power. Now the risk factors for iatrogenic injuries basically depend on the wavelength, the duration of the exposure, the power of the laser, the beam properties, whether it is a continuous or a pulse. A continuous will have a higher damage as compared to a pulse laser. A direct hit to the eye, reflected beams, or invisible parts of the spectrum. The potential location of the injury is directly related to the wavelength. So if you go by the wavelength, near ultraviolet wavelength 315 to 400, most of it is absorbed in the lens. Far ultraviolet, UVB and UVC mostly absorbed in the cornea. So you get issues related to the cornea. The visible spectrum and near infrared, most of it is transmitted to the retina, so overexposure can cause retinal issues. And far infrared is 1400 up to 1 mm, and most of it radiation is transmitted to the cornea and causes corneal burns. Now, this is a long list of the laser procedures and the iatrogenic complications. I'll not go into each of them, but what you will see is what is each part of the eye that you are treating. Say, for example, conjunctival lesions ablation. You can cause necrosis, limbal stem cell damage. So it all depends on the amount of energy that you are using and the duration of the exposure and the type of laser that you are using. So at each part, you have to be careful and titrate your treatment accordingly so that you do not end up with the equivalent iatrogenic damage. Like for PRK, you can have prolonged corneal haze, epithelial healing delay and pain. SMILE, you can have corneal opacities, incomplete removal, interface hazes. Phototherapeutic keratectomy, you can have thinning and irregular astigmatism because of over-treatment. Iridotomy, ND-lag laser iridotomy, we are all aware we can cause hyphemas, corneal endothelial damage, IOP spikes. ND-ag laser, which has again been a common laser used for decades now. Overexposure, over usage of the laser can cause IOL pitting, cracking, retinal detachment, CME. And similarly, if you see a peculiarity is when you use the lasers for glaucoma, the overexposure can cause IOP spikes, inflammation, which again results in an IOP spike. So basically, you have to titrate the usage of the laser according to the treatment outcome desired. Now, what are the preventive measures? I'll quickly come to this. The general preventive strategies and the specific. The general preventive are the pre-procedural care during the procedure and post-procedural, and specific are specific to the lasers, environment and equipment safety, patient safety, physician safety, and we have to look after staff and bystander safety. So the general strategies are proper SOP should be in place. There should be a patient evaluation excluding high-risk individuals. The laser calibration should be done regularly, and there should be a consent with a risk explanation. During the procedure, use minimal effective to avoid collateral damages. Employ safety measures like corneal shields, pupil dilatation control, focus of the laser, and post-procedural monitor the patient for any side effects of the laser. Now, the environment and equipment safety is listed along with the equipment that we use. So a laser device should not be operated if there is any abnormality or abnormal functioning is noted. The instructions and safety precautions should be listed out clearly. Repair, calibration and maintenance, this is the most important, should be done regularly on a timely basis. And equipment should be maintained and inspected. And what is often not done is place a warning sign at any area of the laser usage. So the laser usage area should be clearly marked in any workplace. Again, the appropriate equipment safety, positioning of the equipment. Basically, you need to remove reflective surfaces which can cause reflection of the laser and cause iatrogenic damage as listed earlier to the bystanders or the supporting staff. Again, physician safety is also important. Safety filters are required, safety goggles should be required, and the surgeon should be aware of the hand placement and protection, as the hands are usually the closest to the treatment lasers and reflective surgical instruments. So you can actually cause iatrogenic injuries to the surgeon himself. And staff and bystander safety, they are more vulnerable to hazards due to lack of training or knowledge. So it is the requirement, actually the prerogative of the surgeon to make the staff and bystanders aware of the potential injuries which can be caused. And patient safety protective shields should be worn on the eye not being operated during the laser procedure. So this is just an overview of the broad guidelines that are required and the risk classification of the lasers that are used in ophthalmology. It is actually a very extensive subject. The myriad of injuries or the list is extensive, and each actually requires significant deliberation to cover each topic. I have tried to cover most of it so that we are aware of what the safety guidelines should be in any laser related workplace or environment that we are exposed to. Thank you.
Thank you, Bide Gaurav. In fact, in 8 minutes or so, you have covered not less than 80 minutes input. It's really very high, rich content is having, and the chart is, it must be, I would request my 2 youngsters, and one is a middle youngster, that is so important to go through it. I cut down this thing to my experience with the iatrogenic injuries. My means maybe by me and maybe my colleagues during these things. So we started way back in 80s or so, when we had a xenon arc. The retinal injuries are, you can say how can be dangerous to the extent. The xenon arc had a large spot size. And there are incidences where not only with the xenon arc, I have seen, witnessed in old army hospital, even in, I've seen in Pune also, that macular is burned. The direct hit on the macula by the ophthalmologist. You can imagine that it has been, means it has been experienced in our setup also. Outside also it has happened earlier. So one has to be very, very careful when you are doing retinal lasers, that you are not touching, because the patient suddenly moves and you could not control these things, and or you have focused macular and it has come to this. This was very common when we had a earlier in the 2000 the type of lenses for the lasers. Now the lenses quality has improved and direct imaging is seen, the reverse imaging has definitely. So this is one of the major concern what I have. I remember one case which had a synechia, uveitic cataract. So when you are moving like the anterior segment lasers, when you are focusing, you must ensure that laser is on the rest. It is on the off position, not on the on position. On position only when you have focused it. I have seen that the laser has created traumatic cataract. It has happened in R&R somewhere in 2008 or 9. The laser had put into the one of the Subedar Major's wife. I still remember that. So this is this possibility. When you are making the iridotomies, the peripheral iridotomies, it gives iatrogenic injury to the lens. All of us would have seen cases of the PI cases when you are operating. There is a, but it is a negotiable. It's not a deep as this thing. So you may, if you have used high energy, multiple points, and this can lead to the cataract formation. This is another point which one will see. Posterior capsular opacifications doing for PCO, IOL pitting, yes, it is very common. But other than that, what I have seen in the 98, 2000 with the early lasers in AFMC, those days was the days of the PMMA lenses. So the iris, this IOL pitting in normal lenses, it's just a small these things. But there it was a crack.
PMM is crack.
There was a crack and the fragment of IOL went into the posterior segment. Higher energy used for the PCO had developed retinal detachment. I have seen for doing for the PCO and the patient has developed these things. The macular edema is very common. When you are handling with the children in the lasers in the surgical procedures or in the ROP cases and all, be careful. So these are for the day-to-day practice as an ophthalmologist handling with the laser. We must know that all whatever has been documented here, it is factual, and whatever has not been documented, what I have experienced with the lasers. I did my first laser way back in 1995, the green laser, when it was placed in the army hospital by under this thing, leadership of Brigadier P.R. Sen. So since then we have been seeing, watching. So laser is a good, we are using in all practices, in our all part of the ophthalmic these things, and it will keep on increasing. But be careful that, and another word of caution which I have started doing it now with the PCO cases, please ensure and get it confirmed on the OCT. That you are thinking that this is because of PCO. But you must analyze that the PCO, the visual loss is, compromised vision is commensurate with the PCO.
Yeah, another issue which is...
Since it is a service,
yes.
only 3 service officers are there, so I can speak as a senior consultant surgery also. So I am doing in all my cases before laser, reconfirming on OCT. Because in last 6 months I found in 2 cases where I did not do OCT, one of them found to have the macular hole and another had a macular edema, CNVM. Otherwise the patient may sue you that because of the laser you have done this thing. So be careful. When you take, don't take it as a routine affair and light affair.
If I may add, sir, the issue with PCOs now is actually there is a higher risk because of the newer design of the lenses. Lenses are now have a convexity, and the square edge and the optic design ensures a better contact of the posterior surface of the IOL with the posterior capsule. So actually the safety margin between the PC and the IOL is much lower now. So your safety margin for a PCO has reduced actually over the earlier lenses.
Yeah, absolutely. So what setting you are keeping, Gaurav, for PCO? Off setting? 125 or 250 micron? Earlier we used to keep 250 with the PMMA lenses, and the energy should be as least as there. Somewhere around 1.2 or like that. Thank you very much, Vidya Gaurav, for giving such a wonderful insight. And now